Hello everybody, welcome to video number 6 in my Arabic learning series. At this point we've already completed the alphabet, which is a grand task. Of course with the alphabet you're going to have to practice all the time. Learn vocabulary words, simple vocabulary words to start with, words that you hear very often like hello, goodbye, salam, all these words, the very simple ones, many of which we're going to discuss now. And just start practicing. I would say try to pick up 5 to 10 vocabulary words per day. But in this video, we're going to discuss some of the most common Arabic phrases. Now remember that these are all going to be in modern standard Arabic. So, if you were in the Middle East or an area, or you were just speaking to someone who speaks Arabic, most educated, I would say, 98 to 99% of the people listening to these phrases would understand what you were saying. Perhaps they might giggle because it seems a little bit too formal, the things that you're saying, because there, of course, is slang adapted for almost all of these different terms. But don't worry about it. Most people are very, very, very nice about people who are learning, and learning the modern standard, it's kind of impressive because you're learning a difficult language and you're learning a very formal way of saying things, and then perhaps, as you progress more and more, you may choose your own colloquial dialect to follow. And then if you choose that, there are different ways of saying like, hello, how are you, for instance, in Lebanon, than there would be in Iraq. Okay, so let's get started. Let's start with the very basic ones. If you want to say hi or hello to someone, you have a few different options. Many different options, in fact. But I'm going to give you 2 of the most common ones. One would just be salam, salam. And the second one would be perhaps more common or just more universal would be marhaba. Marhaba. Now we've already seen the word for morning in the second Arabic alphabet video, the word sabah. Now we're going to learn the phrase good morning, and that is sabah al-khair. Sabah al-khair. The word for good evening is quite similar, but it's masa al-khair. Masa al-khair. If you're asking how are you, keep in mind that you need to ask 2 different ways depending on the gender of the person who you are asking. For instance, if you were saying how are you to a male, you would say kayfa haluka. If you were asking a female how she is, you would say kayfa haluki. Kayfa haluki. To respond to that, I'm fine, thank you, you would say ana bikhair, shukran. Ana bikhair is I'm fine, and shukran is thank you. Now shukran, of course, is a very important one to know, very common word. If you want to respond to them and ask how they are doing, the easiest way, rather than learning a lot of more complex phrases now, is just to ask, and you. For instance, in Spanish, it's like, y tú. Very simple. But here you have, of course, the masculine and feminine forms. So if someone asked, how are you? Kayfa haluka? And you respond, ana bikhair, shukran. The next thing you're going to want to say is, and you. So if you're speaking to a male, you would say, wa ant. And if you're speaking to a female, you would say, wa anti. Wa anti. Another word you might want to know is the word just good. So you could respond to how are you with a simple word, good. And the word for good is jayyid. Jayyid. If you want to say thank you very much, you will say, shukran jazilan. This is a fun one to learn in case you run into a very close friend and you want to say hello to them. In other words, you want to say, hello friend. You would say, أهلا صديقي or أهلا صديقتي. أهلا صديقتي is again for the female. أهلا صديقي is for the male. Notice the qaf in صديقي. It's a little bit more emphatic than perhaps صديقي if you were going to say kaf, but this word is spelled with the qaf, so it's more أهلا صديقي. If you wanted to say I've missed you so much, so this is more of a phrase, you would say اشتقت إليك كثيرا. If you're going to say it to a female, it's a very simple change. اشتقت إليك كثيرا. If you wanted to ask someone, what's going on or what's up, perhaps a little bit more slang, you would ask mal jadid. Mal jadid. Say you wanted to respond to the question, what's going on or what's up, with an answer that was like, not much. You would say la shay jadid. Which la shay, nothing really, and then jadid, nothing really new. La shay jadid. Okay, here are 2 very common ones that you're going to definitely want to know. And the first one is, see you later. To a male, you would say, araka fi ma ba'd. For a female, you would say, araki fi ma ba'd. Araki fi ma ba'd. And then for goodbye, A very common one is just ma'a salama. Ma'a salama. Here are a couple of useful phrases, perhaps if you're traveling. Here's the first phrase. I am lost. Ada'tu tariqi. Ada'tu tariqi. This is a good one to know, especially if you're very new to Arabic. And this is, do you speak Arabic? And then the second version will be, do you speak English? There are a couple different ways to say this, but this is the one that I prefer to say. هل تحت حدثت العربية? That is, do you speak Arabic? هل تحت حدثت العربية? This one is, do you speak English? هل تحت حدثت الإنجليزية? If you wanted to respond to that, just a little, very simple phrase, nothing very explanatory, you would say قليلا, قليلا. If you want to ask someone what their name is, you would simply ask ما اسمك? For a man, ما اسمك? For a woman, ما اسمك? ما اسمك? To respond to this, it's very, very simple. It's just ismi and then your name. Mine would be ismi Michael. You can also say ana ismi, but that perhaps becomes a bit redundant, but it's still fine to say ana ismi Michael. So say you want to ask where someone is from. You would say min aina anta, and that is for a male. And you would say min aina anti, for a female. Min aina anta. Min aina anti. If you wanted to say, I'm from the United States, you would say, Ana min America. If you wanted to say, I'm from France, you would say, Ana min Franza. If you wanted to say, I am from Saudi Arabia, you would say, Ana min al-Mamlaka Arabiya Saudiya. If you want to say, I am from Egypt, you would say, Ana min Masr. Finally, we have, where do you live? For a male, you would say, Aina taskun. For a female, you would say, Aina taskunin. Again, Aina taskun or Aina taskunin. And I would respond to that saying, Aishu fil wilayat al-mutahida. And that is, I live in the United States. I hope several of these were fairly helpful. I'm going to include transliterations below. I will make a few more of these videos, but I wanted to get a few of the most common ones out there now. Thank you so much for watching video 6. Make sure to stay updated for future videos. Bye.